Matisse simplified painting, as his teacher Gustave Moreau said that he would do, by leaving out the subtle shading that we find in a lot of the older masters. Matisse makes his strategy plain and clear to the viewer. By looking at works by Matisse, we can train our perceptions, which will enable us to better look at more subtle older masters, such as, for example, Raphael, and see how they too are organizing their works. One of the things that a painter has to think about is the constellation of contrasts and passages in the work. Contrasts can be made of light and dark tones, of dull and intense or saturated tones, or of cool and warm tones. Matisse expresses himself mainly through the contrast of warm and cold. Here, he's using the primary hues, red, yellow, and blue. The warm yellow and red and the cold blue. The blue shapes join with each other. The large blue shape of the wall and the large blue shape of the dress flow together. We see passage, confluence, flowing together of the blue in the one case to the blue in the other. They are differentiated by the disposition of these black lines. This great sweeping, curving line here largely separates the wall from the dress, but there are other lines playing into this. Notice that there are these descending black lines here in the wall, which then are interrupted by this sweeping curve. But notice that this sweeping curve, in turn, overlaps this black line, which overlaps this black line. And then coming the other way, we have this more curved black line. And so we distinguish different volumes within volumes. This part of the dress overlaps this part of the dress, which overlaps this part, which overlaps this part. Overlapping contours are a very powerful means of indicating three-dimensionality in a painting or drawing. Note that this black line, somewhat surprisingly, comes up and overlaps the yellow zone. Thus, it distinguishes between the yellow here, which is part of the yellow shawl, and the yellow here, which is part of the chair back. And then this line itself is interrupted by this line, which starts out vertically and then turns this way to delineate the contour of the woman's shoulder. Thus, this yellow of the shawl overlaps that part of the yellow shawl, which then overlaps the chair back, which overlaps the blue wall back there. The boundary between blue and red here angles down. Now this is significant because that downward angle is reflected, reversed by the angle of this yellow shape here. We are to understand that there is a point of reflection. Angle of incidence equals angle of reflection. And so mysteriously behind the woman here is where the interaction between this and that occurs. This shape bounces up, travels up, flows across this way, and forms a right angle relationship with the neck of the guitar. It is a very powerful angular relationship which causes the guitar to move over this way. Now, another thing that's causing the guitar to move over this way is this sequence of black lines. This, which is actually fed into by the way that this comes down and then this turns like that, gives a little push to this one, which sweeps over this way, which causes this shape to sweep this way, which causes this shape to sweep this way, and then we find ourselves at the guitar here. Now, the red shape of the floor, as it comes down and moves across, then it moves across and back here. Well, meanwhile, we lift up into the warmer, more vermilion color on the side of the guitar. But this larger shape of red continues to move on and back. And then, quite surprisingly, once it gets behind the black plant stand, it gets stretched upward, pushed upward by the activity of that plant stand itself. Because note that we have the black neck of the guitar, and then this triangle of black here, and then the pyramidal rise of that plant stand, which then stretches the red shape here upward. And then another thing is stretching that red shape, the gesture of the woman's hand. Now we are set up for the gesture of that woman's hand by another activity of blue shapes. This triple relationship of this pushing, pushing up and curving around like that. But this one reaches almost to the hand itself. And so the lifting up of the wrist and the hand there is partly assisted by the activity of that blue shape. And while this shape, as it curves around, forms a cross-contour line around the forearm, is assisting the development of that volume. And then when we get up into the hand with its furrowed fingers and pointing index finger, as the index finger presses against the lady's temple here, that forms a continuity with this edge of this red shape here, where the floor meets the wall back there. And so that edge of red gets entrained, gets pulled upward, stretched upward by this gesture. Note that on the other side here, where it is not subject to that pull, it actually sinks down. And so there's a very dynamic interrelationship of red shapes and black shapes and the light pink shape of the flesh of the hand pressing against the head. Meanwhile, when the plant stand has reached its summit here, we have then the vermilion event of the plant pot, and then the spilling out, the fireworks of the fountain-like arrangement of the greenery here, which comes around then to join the lady's head. That curving movement of the greenery harmonizes well with the curves of the chair back here and of the shawl. Now the chair back is a Naples yellow, and as the yellow descends, it modifies. We have rather murky yellows down here, which then rise up and intensify into a brilliant cadmium yellow, which pushes up against this contour of the shawl there. So we get the greater brilliance here pushes up against this contour here, and we get thus a sense of the three-dimensional volume of the lady's shoulder there. And note that that rhymes then with the flatter shape of the chair back. The arm of the chair swings out and down and leads our eye, in fact, back to this yellow shape, and we find that we can then travel back and around. The whole space spirals around counterclockwise and then reaches a kind of climax here. That counterclockwise circulation of the space is intensified, is held in tension with this magnetic relationship of the yellow of the guitar down here to the gathered yellows of shawl and chair back here.